Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this new episode of the Shut Up David series here at New View Safety Coach. Special guest again for you today. I know I'm spoiling you all with all these special guests. Tristan Casey. Our guest today is Tristan Casey. He's a renowned expert in the field of safety leadership and organizational culture, with over 15 years of experience consulting across a wide range of industries, including law enforcement, local government, utilities, offshore oil and gas, construction and manufacturing. Dr. Casey has established himself as a leader in workplace health and safety practices. He's an endorsed organizational psychologist with 2 doctoral degrees. 2. That's ridiculous. Including a PhD focus on developing and validating the award-winning LEAD model, LEAD model. Dr. Casey brings a wealth of academic expertise to his work. He continues to collaborate with esteemed colleagues like Professors Sidney Decker and Dr. Drew Ray as an adjunct senior research fellow at the Griffith University Safety Science Innovation Lab. His unique blend of theoretical knowledge and practical experience makes him a sought-after authority in creating safer, more effective organizational cultures. So let's bring him into the stage and say good day. Tristan.
Hello, David.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks. No worries, mate.
Oh, you're in Gold Coast, aren't you?
Brisbane at the moment, yeah. So I live in the Brisbane area, but sometimes get to the Gold Coast when I can. It's always a nice place to visit.
Yeah, Roger. I was over in well, we call it Bris Vegas over here in Perth. I'm sure you've heard that term before, but it's actually a city I've been there 2 or 3 times now. I really enjoy it. It's far more cosmopolitan than Perth. It's bigger, it's clean, it's actually a really pretty place. I do like it quite a lot.
Yeah.
How are you going anyway?
Yeah, good, mate. Just as we were talking before, busy as we all, that kind of generic answer. We're all busy, but a good busy. Yeah, exciting busy.
All right, well, that's good. Why don't we start off with what we spoke about, which was a bit of a general intro to you, for people who aren't aware of you, because the audience for this actually, because I've far wider than Australia, as you can imagine, being on YouTube. In fact, our second largest subscriber base is based in Brazil. So the Brazilians really love these videos. So yeah, start with a brief description as to who you are, how you got to where you are at the moment. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, David. So it's a bit of a funny journey. I've fell into safety as we all do. Going through my career, my studies, initially I thought, well, what's kind of a blend of technical and people coming together, and safety ticked that box for me because it has got a heavy technical element to it, in terms of standards and sort of technologies and all these interesting emerging issues, but it also has a strong human component, as we all know, that the interaction of the people and the systems coming together is what makes safety such a exciting and deep subject. If you go to a barbecue and say you work in safety, people will roll their eyes or say, "Oh, you're the rule person, the compliance person." But you scratch beneath that, and there's such a rich array of theories and models and debates and a whole host of exciting stuff that's really cool. So my journey, I guess, has been not typical. I've worked in academia, in government, private industry, and as a consultant. So sort of the 4 main areas of what you could do in safety, I guess. So that's given me a really nice smorgasbord of experiences, and I hope that my latest kind of journey, which is an internal industry person as a wellbeing director, but also directing my own business, New View Safety, with Kim Bancroft. That's kind of been a good place for me to start to make all these experiences come to life and help organizations with that extensive experience. So that's a little snapshot, I guess, mate. But anything there that you want me to unpack, I can do.
I was just thinking, Tristan, to be honest with you, I didn't even, and I had this all set out in my mind. I like to try and give a bit of context as to how I know the speaker, if I know the speaker at all. And we've completely glazed over the fact when you mention your academic life, I'm like, of course, Tristan was one of my lecturers at Griffith University when I was doing the safety leadership postgrad there. So that's originally where I met Tristan, in his academic practice, well, his academic life. And that actually,
Mm,
the first time I ever heard the word pracademic was from you. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? But then I had to look at it, and it's that blend, isn't it? It's the blend of the academic and the practitioner, and how those two come together. Um, so that's where I first met Tristan, and then we had some communications in between there. But next time
mm,
I really met you is when you were in Perth, and you were gracious enough to come along to one of my Safety Differently book club events and give a talk um, to
mm,
to the members here in Perth. So it's been a bit of a journey over. What was it now? 5 or 6 years, something. I think it's about
mm.
6 years, isn't it?
It would be, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. By the way, I love the word. I love your use of the word smorgasbord. Smorgasbord of experience. It's
Yeah.
such a cool word. So you okay? So let's just give a bit of a wrap up there for people who aren't aware. You started out working for the regulator over in the eastern states. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Queensland, we did the regulator
In Queensland?
leadership and culture unit there for a few years. Consulting prior to that at Centus, one of the biggest sort of psychology based consulting companies, and then
I
over
think Kim worked
to
there as well.
Kim. Yeah, she was there with me at the same time. That's how we kind of connected and got to be
Gotcha.
friends at that time. So we were together in that organization for about 7 years. Then we parted ways and kept in touch and did little bits and pieces here. I supported her at Urban Utilities with a few things, introduced her to some of these ideas, and then she just took it and ran with it, as most people do. So
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
nice alignment. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Fabulous. And then, so tell us a little bit about. I mean, you mentioned there at the moment your capacity at the moment is split between um, your your role as a director for a finance organization
Correct. Yeah.
and and at New View Safety. Can you talk to us a little bit about New View Safety? I can pull up the webpage if that helps to give some people an idea as to what it is you do there and what kind of
Yeah.
services you offer, what benefit it might be to them, to actually start engaging you with some of the services that you do offer.
Sure, David. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so New View Safety is an initiative with myself and Kim Bancroft. We are a good team of the practitioner and the scientist coming together. So I'm more of the scientist flavor, and Kim's more of the practitioner element. Given our different life journeys and histories in this space, and I
Yep.
guess where we're positioning ourselves is sort of a bit different. We're sort of bespoke training developers. We don't have off the shelf things. We develop products and services, unique to each client. We also do a bit of discovery work in terms of the maturity of an organization in the safety space and helping organizations to set like a safety evolution strategy. So we kind of come in at the front end and help people organize their approach to this new view or this new approach of safety, and then help them with the implementation, changing mindsets, changing belief structures, and then the practical skills of actually doing, the tools, the techniques, learning teams, working sites, all those types of things. We kind
Yep.
of bring it to life. So it's sort of the front end academic, abstract kind of models and theories and
Yep.
frameworks, and we make that come to life with our products and training services. So in a
Right.
nutshell, that's what we do.
So you could say almost that your organization is a pracademic.
I think so, yeah. It's funny. It's like, yeah, that kind of interesting space between the theorists and the implementers, this
Yeah.
this really funny kind of boundary space between the two.
And how's that going for you at the moment? I believe it's busy times for you at the moment.
It is, yeah. But we've been fortunate to have some early success. We've only been around for a couple of years, and only seriously, about 6 months or so, as we've both decided this is what we want to do with our lives.
Yep.
And since that time, I've just had a lot of interest from a diverse range of clients. So anything from an undersea construction company that specializes in unexploded munitions, all the way through to a nuclear decommissioning client in the UK, and everything in between. So
Wow.
the variety is what excites me. The learning about a client's organization, their industry, and how we can help them. It's really humbling.
Yeah, right. And you get involved in the actual safety systems side of things as well. I can see here from your services, you got safety systems foundations. So I'm assuming that's more if we're thinking about the integral model, that's more from the actual systems and the processes side of the organization.
Yeah, we do a bit of that too. So we've got one client, a council, that we're working with at the moment to review their safety management system and apply a new view lens to it so that they're sort of future-proofing their system, ensuring it's usable, implemented consistently, just sort of augmenting and enhancing the traditional audit with more of the new view flavor. So
Yeah, right.
that's another exciting direction we're going in.
Yeah, right. Where would uh if you were being approached by someone who said, "Look, I've heard about New View. It sounds like something that we want to do and one we want to go to." Where would you direct them to in your website as a place to start learning about the services and about the offerings that you have and about what it
Yeah.
takes to actually be able to do that?
Great question. So there's a who we help
Oh yeah.
tab or button there. So it sort of divides it into different categories. If you're an executive operational kind
Ah,
of GM or you're a safety manager or a professional, you've got different options and different sorts of things that might be relevant for you. So it's a bit of a choose your own pathway there.
yeah, right. Because obviously each group of these people have got different needs and different requirements when it comes to the
Correct.
implementation of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
who do you like? Who do you prefer to work with if you're talking about cultural change and uh, system amendments and all that kind of stuff? What's your ideal client
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah. Interesting. I think there's no real demographic set. It's more just that acknowledgement that they're willing to change and they've had the conversations with their CEO or their other executive leaders, because we just find that if a safety professional or manager comes to us a little bit too early in their journey, they haven't laid the groundwork, they haven't started the
Yeah,
change internally, it can fall over.
yeah,
We just prefer it, I guess, when there's that groundswell and there's alignment and everyone's ready to take the first step.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was talking to Sam Goodman earlier on, and he explained. I said to him, "What's the perfect client for you?" And he goes,
Sure.
"It's not really about the size. It's about,"
Yeah.
he called it, when there's like a guerrilla faction at the sharp end, people who are aware and they're starting to
Mm.
experiment locally and but keep it nice and quiet and, oh, we can't tell loads above us. But then also when the executives, they start getting super curious about, okay, well,
Yes.
how do we, and it's less likely to be safety focused. Let's be honest, more likely to be performance or operational integrity and all that kind of stuff
Mm.
focused. But
Mm.
when those two merge, when you get the upper uh, leaders in the organization, having the same kind of desires as the people on, the shop floor, he said that's when magic can really happen. Is that
Mm.
similar to your experience as well?
Yes and no. I mean, that probably is the path of easiest implementation. I think even clients where there isn't that sort of foundational understanding, it can be an interesting challenge to try and shift their views. So I just relish the variety of anyone that kind of has an issue or a challenge or an ambition,
Yep.
coming to us to say, look, here's what we want to do. Here's our blockages or our barriers. Help us figure out the best path forward. And that's what really excites me is figuring out the solutions, I
Yeah,
think.
right.
Yeah.
And I, I know you've got two two PhDs, which is ridiculous, by the way, Tristan. I
I
mean,
know, it's silly.
that's I know people who've been doing one for the past like 5 or 7 years, and they're finding it ridiculously difficult. But you just seem to, I don't know. Well, you seem to be very good and very proficient in that kind of thing. Um, and one of them is in organizational psychology, isn't it?
Yeah, they both one is like so the first one's called a professional doctorate, which is more of like a practice oriented PhD. So it's where you learn the practice of safe coaching, of statistical analysis, of research evaluation, and all those types of things. And that was the first one. And that was in a completely different space of technology adoption. And then I realized that safety was my passion. I decided to go back and do the full PhD, which was more of a research oriented degree, I guess.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
And which lens do you like to, when someone comes to you and says, "Look, we've got a safety problem," what's your default lens that you like to go to? Do you like to go through the organizational psychologist lens, or do you like to, I don't know, which lens do you like to look through, I suppose is the question.
Yeah, I mean the org psych is interesting because it gives you that firm research orientation and that data that thirst for data, and that's where I like to start, is like a thorough understanding of where the organization's at. So if they've got, really interesting data sets that link together, and we can look at HR, we can look at their survey data, we can look at their safety stats and say, look, here's a picture of where you're at, or here's where you want to get to, and the gaps in between. That's really the sweet spot, I think, for me, is really helping tell a story through the data that the client has.
Yeah, gotcha. Right, okay. And then obviously Kim's skills come in and complement that as well with regards to you. So you interpret the data, and then you know with Kim's skills as well, you figure out what would be the best approach for the client at the time.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Oh,
So
you've
Kim's got
gone.
that wealth of oh, hello?
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's just a bit of a pause for a second.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, that's right. I guess Kim has that experience with dealing with executives, convincing her CEOs and other organizations to adopt the change and all the strategic change initiatives that she's implemented. So, we're a good team, I think. We're a good combination.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, cool. So when we're talking about implementation, I think this is one of the key things that from our call the other week, wasn't it, that we wanted to try and broach, because you know that um, my interest in safety has changed over the years. You know, from when I
Mm,
first started working in it, it was very much I was thrown in the deep end. It was very much a case of, look, this is a compliance job. This is you create policies and procedures and swims and all that kind of stuff. And then I had that realization moment where I kind of I created this safety management system, and then stood back and thought, I'm not 100% sure how much good I've done. Um,
mm,
and the people that I used to work with on the front line would come to me and go, "Look, Dave, you just made our job harder. What was
mm,
that all about?" Like, and then I got introduced to obviously Sydney Decker, Fair Griffith University. That's where we first met, and then it's kind of kept on evolving. I've s- I've s- I've sort of come almost full circle, I feel anyway, whereby I was focusing on the systems and the bureaucracy, I suppose
mm,
the all the documentation and everything. And then I started being exposed to, look, it's about the people per se
mm,
more. It's about humanizing safety. And then I've kind of continued that and figured, well, it's actually, for me anyway, it's more about the individual. I
mm,
feel that I feel I can work with and do my best work, and that's where my interest is with the individual, which is why I've sort of progressed my training and my experience
mm,
into the safety coaching field, or well, just the organizational coaching, really, to be honest with you, which is a generic term for um,
mm,
helping people perform better in a work environment, I suppose, um, but through a safety lens. And you said that
mm.
that was an interesting topic of conversation for us to speak about, because it's something that
Yeah.
you're interested in as well, isn't it? It's that one-on-one, having those structured conversations whereby you can start
Mm,
breaking down internal barriers and working out how
yeah.
people can perform better. How important do you see that as a part of an implementation strategy that New View Safety might have with one of their clients?
Yeah, I mean, the main bout of experience I've had recently with coaching has been in my day job, which is the financial institution. And yeah, I've done nearly 100 individual coaching sessions within, I think, sort of 3 or 4 months. And the insights there, I really love the idea of coaching, not only just for the individual and helping them to perform well at work, but also to gather insights and sort of trends and themes across multiple folks within a division or a department, and be
Yep.
able to work on the system level issues simultaneously. So you're almost getting through like a traditionally individual focused approach, getting a sense of, well, what are the system level barriers, blockages, enablers, things that sit outside the individual's control, and how can we kind of, part the waters, carve a path, and help them to get to their performance goals through making the conditions more effective for them to,
Yeah.
to perform at their peak. So I've sort of thought about my own little flavor of coaching, and how I bring a research lens to a traditionally practice oriented technique, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. How did you find that? How did you find? I mean,
Oh,
100
yeah.
coaching sessions over 3 months. That's a fair effort, mate.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's been really rewarding just because, the individual connections, the rapport, the trust that gets built through that is really valuable because then the information flows in the organization. You're
Yeah,
almost like as a coach, you're a conduit to connect the executives to the front line and make them aware of issues. One example in this organization, they do some outsourcing. And through the coaching, we're able to identify a lot of individual pain points and enablers and things that people weren't comfortable telling their manager or their director, but they would confide in me, oh, hey, this is really not working for me. This is why I haven't been
yeah,
able to tell anyone else. And that, gives better decision making for how to actually get that service
yeah.
operating more effectively. So it sort of, you build the individual rapport with the frontline staff, and then through delivering insights and recommendation solutions, you build rapport with the executives. So you're kind of operating at different levels all the time.
It's almost like you're saying, these individual coaching sessions, you use them almost like a mini learning team purely for the individuals, so that
Mm,
as common themes come out over 10, 20, 30 people that you're talking to, if they're all talking about a particular system or a particular issue within the
yeah.
organization, then you can identify them, extrapolate them, and then broadcast them to the senior leadership without any names attached to them, obviously, but just
Exactly.
saying, look, here are common themes, here are common pain points and problems and friction points that people in your organization are talking about.
Yep.
No
Yep.
names. Okay, so then so I see now where you're bringing in the individual element, so you're helping the
Mm.
individual personally perform, and you're also helping the organization perform as well at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. So it is quite simple. It is as much as that the structure of the coaching would be, what's your little career journey up till now? Then we move into the goals and aspirations. What do you want to get to? Unpack what they think are their personal barriers or challenges getting there, and then say, well, what else in the organization is maybe acting as a bit of a brake on your aspirations coming to fruition? So
Yeah,
yeah, it is like a different level of analysis at each stage.
yeah.
And like you
You've
said,
almost got to be
really
like
valuable.
two different people, kind of
Yeah,
viewing the data
different
that
views.
comes in two different ways. Is there any
Yeah, yeah.
particular type of coaching methodology or training that you went through before you did this, or is it something that you've picked up over years as an org psych?
A bit of both. So as an org psych, you get lots of training, but not a lot of practice to actually do it. And so I had a bit of a confidence crisis and thought, oh, am I able to do this sort of thing?
Yeah,
Being authentic about it. So I enrolled in a coaching degree through Swinburne University. And I did the first course and I was like, hey, I know this stuff. And I did some role plays with my classmates and they're like, yeah, you can do this. You're doing really well. So I thought maybe I'll put that on the back burner and that degree and just jump into it. And that
yeah,
was enough
right.
to give me the boost that I needed to just get some validation that I was on the right
The
path and I knew what I was doing, I guess.
That was your Dutch courage, was it? That was what
Yeah,
you needed
yeah,
to get. Yeah, right. Okay, and
yeah.
it's gone well. It's gone well, is it?
It has, yeah. So one of the measures that I look at is from the clinical space, there's a measure of therapeutic working alliance, which is you can easily apply to a coaching conversation, and it's about 4 questions. And I just did an anonymous survey of my coachees, about sort of 30 into the sessions, 30 people, and things like Tristan allowed me to speak about what I wanted to. We're working on goals that are meaningful to me. 4 little indicators of effectiveness, and
Yep.
that came back really strong. So
Yeah,
again, the
right.
data coming into it, the evidence to say, yep, I'm on the right track. It's not just a gut feel. I've got the objective evidence or the survey data to show that.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the way, Tristan, you keep on coming back to that evidence base. As
Mm,
you know, I'm in the early stages starting a master's at the University of Sydney in coaching psychology.
right.
And a lot of that, well, the first essay, which we just hands in, is evidence-based practice. It's,
Ah,
is there any evidence to support what we're doing? And if there is, what does it look like and how does it fit into it? And the crux of the issue is that coaching is an undisciplined profession.
mm, mm,
It's not even really an identified profession, to be honest with you. It's more in the technical sense of the term anyway. Um,
yeah.
but it is very undisciplined. It is a bit Wild West. There are
Mm,
organizations out there, the ICF and IECL here in Australia, but the ICF more generally is a global entity, and there are other foundations as well. That are trying to bring a level of legitimacy to that particular practice, with barriers to entry and all that sort
Mm,
of stuff. But a lot of the early stuff that we're learning at uni at the moment is about, there are evidence-based, there is empirical evidence to support what you're doing. You just need to be prepared to
yeah,
not have access to specific coaching um, uh, data, because it's not that old and there isn't that much information out there. We have to extract it from things like CBT or solution focus and positive
mm,
psychology and those other elements and those other industries. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you want to start actually having those effective conversations, and especially when you're dealing with an organization, you want to be able to prove to them that what you're doing is empirically validated, and the
mm,
evidence that you're collecting is useful, and you're collecting it in a formatted structure so that you can back up
yeah.
what you're doing as well. Um, and did the executives, do they appreciate the information that you're providing to them?
Yeah, I think, you mean in terms of the themes and insights or the
Yeah,
evaluation data?
well, both really, both.
Yeah, yeah. So the evaluation side, we've done the individual coaching effectiveness piece, but now we're looking at an organization-wide survey which taps into more of like your job design factors. And so if the coaching is having an impact, working with the managers and the supervisors, we should start to see those perceptions shift, that they are changing the way that they manage work, the way they're
Yeah,
changing the way they lead people. So we'll pick that up hopefully when we do that survey. The themes and insights, the actual kind of data that comes out of the sessions, the de-identified stuff, that's really valuable, because for a manager, it opens their eyes to maybe their blind spots. It adds another layer or dimension to their decision making that they
yeah,
wouldn't have otherwise considered. So it's almost like, we're making more effective decisions because we're empathizing with our people and incorporating their views into our business decisions, not just
yes,
assuming or making our own kind of path as executives and being the heroic, decisive leader, but
yeah,
more the authentic, humble leader,
yeah,
understanding
yeah.
how we support our people more effectively.
Is there any pain when you give that information? Because I know from feedback from learning
Yeah.
teams and everything, it's always a bit of a journey that a leader has to go on to actually be able to hear the type of information that comes back to them, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, one example is where, the feedback was such that the manager was really disappointed to say, "Oh, why couldn't people tell me this? Why didn't they share it with me?" And so I had to work with that leader just to help, give them a sense of, well, there's this, the idea of psychological safety, or just, people not wanting to cause extra work for their leader, just a whole host of reasons. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more
Yep.
just, we're starting this journey. We want people to be more open, but maybe a coach is needed to get them on that path to be more trusting and open with their own leaders in the business.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you've got this wealth of experience from this financial institution with the one-on-one coaching that you've been doing,
Mm,
and actually being able to identify as well some systemic issues as well as
mm.
personal issues as well, which can all work towards improving performance for the organization. How do you see all that experience you've got,
Yep.
and the benefits of coaching? How do you see that integrating with New View Safety? How do you see it
Yeah.
supporting the services that you provide?
Yeah, great question, David. I think it perhaps is a little bit the front end, perhaps when we're engaging with executives and giving them the new view story, the philosophy, and the coaching, the one-to-one, sessions can support a more group-based delivery of a presentation, and then follow up with some individual discussions to help shift the mindsets and, help them understand these concepts in more detail, a more tailored kind of intervention. But the real bulk, I think, is the embedding side of things.
Mm.
Once the strategy is set, the training's implemented, what next? How do we keep the conversation and the skills and the tools being applied? And people, go to a training and then learn a few things and try and use it and think, oh, this is frustrating. I won't persist. But the coaching, I think, is the real sweet spot to build their
Yeah,
self-efficacy or their confidence. That belief in yourself that you can be successful if you keep trying. And of course, it's going to be hard and difficult, but with a coach's help, you can think of things in different perspectives, and different ideas will come to mind that you would never have thought of on your own.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a bit of a transition from, like from a sheep, a sheep dip approach, get
Yeah.
everyone through the training, then a more individual targeted one-to-one or one to small group approach, and then the organization can run away on its own and do
Yeah.
what it needs to do if you've built the capability. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that, because at the end of the day as well, when we look at it, um, these executive leaders themselves, and it's going to sound stupid to say it, but they are just individuals, and they all have their own
Mm,
fears, they all have their own biases, they all have their own
mm,
um, and desires and ambitions and all that kind of stuff. And I'm, I've highlighted what 15 or 20 um, potential psychological barriers that could get in the way of senior leaders in the organization actually being able to um, gel with, be able to
mm,
work with and be able to adapt and adopt some of these principles, because they can be very conflicting. If you're a
mm,
senior leader in an organization 20, 30, 40 years, and you've been rewarded for that entire time for the way that you think and for your view on safety, and then suddenly someone comes along and says, well, actually, we're going to change that, it's now more about the people, and
mm,
it's our job to support them with the systems, it's not their fault if they have
mm,
all these kind of things. That's got to be like cognitive dissonance overload for them, really, hasn't it? Let's be honest.
mm.
And they're only people as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, putting leaders up on this pedestal of being superhuman or heroes or heroines, if there's one thing we've learned about leadership, Alex Haslam, Professor Alex Haslam from UQ, he said it's this sort of zombie leadership idea that it's actually more about the followers. We have to sort of
Yeah,
flip leadership on its head, that without followers, there is no leader. So a leader, to help them make that transition or that mindset shift, we've got to do it gently, in a
yeah,
way that kind of meets them where they're at, introduces them gradually to the concepts, helps them make sense of them, lower the defensive mechanisms, and just I think that's really one of the key purposes of coaching, David, is perspective.
yeah,
Just having this neutral, trusted, open person that you can bounce ideas off with no worry about judgment or
yeah.
implications, really.
It's a safe space, isn't it? It's a
It
safe
is,
space
it
for
is,
them.
yeah, it is, it is, and even that in itself can be changing, change worthy or therapeutic. Just being able to vent and express yourself freely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and the power for people who aren't that aware of, professional coaching. The power isn't
Mm,
in what you tell, isn't it's not in the advice that you give, and this is a
mm,
conversation I have to have with lots of different people, because coaching is a bit of an unregulated word, and it gets used in places where it really shouldn't be used, and
yes.
has lots of different contexts and lots of different meanings without that. The context that we're talking about, Tristan and I, we're talking about a structured approach to asking insightful questions.
Yeah.
And to that end, you don't actually need to know, one doesn't need to know anything about the person's industry that they're working in
Mm,
order to have an effective coaching session, because it's more about the individual. It's the individual's internal biases and barriers, like we're talking about here.
mm,
Um, but it's it's those structured questions, isn't it? Those are the questions that give people chance to actually think about the response. Why are they thinking the way they're thinking? What impact might
mm,
that have? Are there any alternatives? If they are at a particular stuck point, trying to solve a problem, it's changing the frame around that problem and maybe shifting them out of it and saying, okay, what would you tell somebody else who has the same problem as you? And even something
yeah.
as simple as that can provide the space, can't it, for people to reduce the anxiety level, think about it more
Mm,
analytically and detached almost, isn't it? It's kind of you're taking
mm,
the problem away from them so they can analyze it far better. Have it in what we call an IECL training, we call it the crucible. So it's this
mm,
space between the coach and the coachee, which is a safe space you can place information and analyze it
mm,
and inspect it, and it's judgment free as well.
mm,
That for me is that's the power of the coaching, because it provides that safe space in order to be able to do that.
mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Precisely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you mentioned there that, and you see it as being having two two facets within the implementation of new view safety techniques and processes and things, which would be with the front line and with the executive. What about this infamous or famous frozen middle management?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I've found that, with my coaching experiences so far, that the middle management level, like the team leaders, the supervisors, are the ones that perhaps need the most support because they have the demands of the organization's management on them, and then also the needs and the requests and sort of the sort of upwards pressure as well from their own teams.
Yeah,
So they've got it from both sides, both angles. And I sort of find that, with the experiences that I've had, that the managers are the ones that really pressure test your organization systems. So if things are going to go wrong, or there's issues with the way you measure people, or performance manage them or not, you'll find that data out if you just talk to the managers. They'll be able to give you a really good sense of how the organization's functioning.
yeah,
Um, because they've got that blend of knowing the formalized system parts and implementing that, but also, the frontline sort of challenges and issues bubble up, and they're
yeah,
aware of that as well.
yeah.
So
They're
yeah, I
getting it.
think they're really important.
It's like their arms are getting pulled by the executive and their legs are getting pulled
Yeah,
by the workers, and they're
yeah,
just under constant pressure, aren't they?
yeah. Like in terms of my exposure to that level, it's been, they work the longest hours. They perhaps received the least recognition.
Mm.
um, they maybe have the less leadership training and the skills to actually do their jobs effectively. They're measured on their productivity, but they're expected to manage people and, relationships as well. But there's no kind of measurement of that. So, in many organizations, all these challenges are pretty prevalent, I think.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So you mentioned there that you're starting to shift your time now, away,
Mm.
more away from your financial institution role and more towards new view safety. So that tells me obviously that you're getting more and more work in new view safety space. What's the ultimate goal for new view safety?
Yeah, I mean, because we're fairly new and fresh, it's, my personal goal is just to do work that excites, that interests, and deliver value. Like, I just love being useful and building things and creating tools and resources. And, that for me is my sense of meaning, is A, variety, and B, a sense of value and contributing to something bigger. So that's kind of my really macro high level goals. In terms of the business itself, I guess it's just to continue our success, to consolidate, to be seen as one of the go-to resources. There's many people playing in this space, and so it's not a competitive thing. We prefer to collaborate with other consultants. We work together. We figure out projects where our interests align and our skill sets complement.
Yep.
So it's not being the biggest or the best or the you know making
Yeah.
making the most money. It's just doing things that are meaningful,
Yeah.
and working with great people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. That sounds awesome. That sounds
Mm.
great. So if people are listening to this, we've already briefly looked at the website, but is that the easiest way for people to reach out to you to get more information from you if they want to have a conversation with you about any of the things that we've been talking about? Is that the easiest way to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean that's a good starting point. If you want, if you prefer a more direct means of communication, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. Tristan Casey, you'll find me.
I can put a link.
Or
I can put a link
yeah,
underneath as well in
that'd
description.
be,
Is that all right?
be perfect. And then just like email is just info@thenewview.com.au, and that goes straight to me. So happy to have a chat about anything. If it's just sharing experiences or looking for help, whatever, it's fine. I'm always responsive to that.
Awesome. I'll put all that details down in the description. I'm still yet to figure out how to make those cards to go up on the actual screen so people can just click on the screen. It's like
Yeah, easy.
I'm 46. You'd think I'd be able to figure this stuff out, but I'm baby steps, isn't it? It's baby
No,
steps,
you'll get
David.
there.
You'll be
Yeah.
right. You'll be right. All right. Well, Tristan, I've really enjoyed our time together. Thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure catching up with you because, like I said, we share a little bit of history, and
Mm.
it's always nice to touch base with you again and see you doing well, and yeah, just catch up with you, to be honest with you. So I very much appreciate you coming on. If there's any possibility in the future of having you on to talk about anything in particular, and maybe some specifics around kind of implementation techniques, or barriers that you've come across, or benefits to doing things in certain ways, I'd be more than happy to have you back, Tristan, any time.
Great. Now look forward to it, mate. We can do a case study or something interesting like that, and look forward to it.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. If you can hang on while I just close everything down, because otherwise people tend to jump off at the same time as I'm stopping the recording, and so I try to go back into the studio and there's no one there to have a bit of a catch up on. But if you could hang around, I'll just say goodbye to everybody, and thank you for watching, everyone, and for listening, because we're now on Spotify. So follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube. We're nearly at 2,000 subscribers now after 7 weeks, so it's going gangbusters. It's going really well. And we're also on Spotify. There'll be a link. I'll put a link at the bottom of this video as well for Spotify. There is a video currently on YouTube where people can see to Spotify video, and there's a link in there, but I'll put it down below here as well, so it's easy to get to. So if you want to listen to this in the car, as opposed to have to sit down and watch it, you can do that as well. But thank you again for watching, everybody, and thank you for your time today, Tristan. Very much appreciated.